My name is Leah, and at 33 years old, I work as a civil servant in a national administrative agency. Life has been demanding with a hectic schedule, but I'm doing what I've always dreamed of since my student days, so I feel fulfilled in my career. In my personal life, I've been living with my partner, Hugh, for 5 years. While we're not officially married and are considered a common law couple, Hugh's parents often mention that we should think about getting married for our future. However, we haven't taken that step yet. My family has always been deeply rooted in male chauvinism, prioritizing the eldest son above all. Despite being my parents' first child and the first grandchild on my dad's side, I've never felt valued. Tomorrow, there's a talent show at TCH school, and I've invited my parents countless times only to be mocked and dismissed. They would say hurtful things like, "If we had time, we'd rather sleep," or "You're really stupid if you don't understand that." Seeing my friends' parents take photos and videos during school events was particularly heartbreaking. Before I started elementary school, my brother Miles was born. The joy he brought overshadowed everything else. Even my workaholic dad would rush home if mom texted about Miles feeling unwell. They would stay up all night taking care of him. When I started elementary school, neither of my parents attended the orientation, citing they were too busy with Miles. I felt utterly alone on my first day, watching other families take commemorative photos. Not only my parents, but also my grandparents treated Miles as if he were the only grandchild who mattered. His paternal grandparents, who lived with him, showered him with gifts and took him everywhere. This upbringing made Miles selfish and arrogant, especially towards me. He would take my things or destroy them without consequence, and my family would dismiss my complaints. This cycle of neglect and favoritism continued throughout my childhood, leaving me to grow up without feeling any warmth or love from my family. I had one simple wish: to attend college as far away from home as possible, effectively cutting ties with my family. At home, my brother Miles was always in the way, or I'd get stuck with chores that disrupted my studies, so I buried myself in books, libraries, and empty classrooms after school. To cover college application fees, travel expenses for school tours, and exam costs, I worked part-time at grocery stores. All that effort paid off when I got accepted into a prestigious university. My parents and grandparents couldn't care less. "If you want to go, go. But don't expect any help from us," they said. I saw that coming from a mile away. I had already applied for every scholarship available and planned to live in a dorm to minimize costs. Plus, I had my best friend, Selena. Selena and I had been friends since elementary school. Her parents knew all about my family situation. Selena's dad even worked at the same company as mine in a different department. My dad's chauvinistic behavior was often a topic of discussion at his workplace. Selena's mom, who had a similar domineering personality, shared stories from their school days. When Selena and I first became friends, her parents were cautious about their daughter befriending someone from my family. However, they warmed up to me after seeing how much Selena praised me and how I stood by her when she faced isolation from other girls in class. "If it weren't for you, Leah, my school life would have been miserable," Selena often said. But the truth is, I don't know what I would have done without her and her parents. They were the ones who kept me going. Selena always encouraged me to be myself, and her parents offered a helping hand whenever I needed it. Thanks to them, I was able to navigate through high school. As for college, Selena had already decided to attend a local university. I had nothing to do until graduation, so Selena offered to help me. "Lee," she said. She assisted with the nitty-gritty details of placement exam logistics, like booking hotels and flights. On the day I left for college, my family didn't bother to see me off. But Selena and her parents came to the airport. As we said our goodbyes, she handed me an envelope. "This is a farewell gift from all of us. You'll need things for dorm life," she said. Inside was $2,000. I tried to refuse, but she insisted. "Take it. We'll always be friends, but I won't be able to help you like this again," she said, tears in her eyes. During my college years, I never touched that money. Holding onto the envelope reminded me of Selena and her family, giving me the strength to keep going. After graduating from college, I pursued my dream of attending graduate school. I passed the civil service exam and took my first steps into the working world. Selena and I stayed in touch through texts, and she even visited me during family vacations. She ended up working as an administrative staff member at a local hospital after college. 8 years later, I returned to my hometown for the first time in 12 years. I was invited to Selena's wedding, where she married a doctor from the same hospital where she worked. During those 12 years, my maternal grandparents had passed away, but my paternal grandparents, who lived with us, were still healthy. My brother Miles had enrolled in a prestigious middle school, considered the most challenging in our area, that same year. When I went off to college, my parents were proud, often boasting, "Miles is just like me, so talented. We're excited for his future. We might even send him abroad for studies." Miles, considered a child prodigy in elementary school, found himself among equally capable students in his new school. However, he was shocked when he scored average on his first exam. "This can't be the real me. I'm better than this," Miles insisted. Instead of putting in effort, he blamed everyone else. Teachers, classmates, even the school's timing for his shortcomings. By the time he reached ninth grade, the school suggested transferring might be less stressful for him. But both Miles and my parents couldn't accept this reality, driven by their pride. Miles continued on to high school, where he struggled to keep up and eventually dropped out. Meanwhile, I was in grad school when my parents suddenly asked, "Aren't there any schools there that Miles could get into? The more prestigious, the better. A school with tradition would be ideal." They even hinted if I knew any influential professors. I tried to explain the impracticality of their expectations, but they accused me of being cold and heartless. I stood firm, insisting that some things are simply impossible. Eventually, we lost contact. According to Selena, who stayed in our hometown, my parents enrolled Miles in an online high school. They made excuses, claiming, "Our son is too exceptional for regular education. He would only attract jealousy and make life difficult for himself." Miles graduated from the online high school, attended a local college, and secured a job at a subsidiary of my dad's company through my grandfather's influence. Through this connection, I crossed paths with Miles again. When I returned to my hometown for Selena's wedding, I arrived 2 days early at her request. She had something important to discuss. Unenthusiastic about visiting my parents, I opted to stay at the hotel where the wedding would take place. I spent leisurely moments with Selena, including trips to the spa. We were invited to dinner by Selena's parents, and it was during this dinner at the hotel restaurant that I unexpectedly encountered Miles and my parents. At first, they didn't recognize me. I suppose it was understandable. When I lived at home, I was thin and didn't prioritize my appearance like other girls. It was only when my parents greeted Selena's parents that they realized I was their daughter. "Leith, is that you? You're back in town. My, you've changed," my parents exclaimed warmly. "Are you free later? Maybe we could." I wasn't in the mood for their sudden friendliness. "I'm heading back right after Selena's reception, so I don't have time," I interjected, then quickly excused myself. I did catch Miles' eye, but to be honest, I wouldn't have recognized him on the street. He had lost his youthful look and now exuded a demeanor that seemed cunning. After the wedding, I returned to my condo. Soon after, started receiving messages from my parents and Miles, who had obtained my number from Selena's parents without my consent. According to a message from Selena's father, who apologized for giving them my contact information, they wanted me to attend Miles's wedding. Miles is getting married, yes, apparently to the younger sister of a college classmate. She's only 21 and quite beautiful, my parents messaged me. "What does that have to do with me attending?" I responded, puzzled. According to Selena's father, Miles had secured his job through my grandfather's connections, but his overinflated self-esteem often clashed with his actual abilities. He had developed a habit of looking down on people, dismissing those who stayed in our hometown as insignificant. Consequently, when he announced his wedding, nearly everyone from colleagues to bosses found excuses to avoid attending. I had every intention of feigning a terrible cold that day, or at least using my tarot card reading as an excuse to avoid going anywhere near the wedding venue. Planning to have a cold, huh? I see, I thought to myself wryly. My parents and Miles seemed determined to match or exceed the number of attendees from the bride's side. Even though I'm not the most exuberant sister or daughter, they apparently felt it necessary to have me there, especially given my graduate degree from a prestigious university and my government job. Their shallow reasoning annoyed me to no end. Competing over the number of attendees is absurd, I muttered to myself. but ignoring them would only lead them to pester Selena's father to intervene, so reluctantly, I replied to Miles's message. He had greeted me with, "Long time no talk. You must be happy to be useful to the family for once." I ignored his snide remark and agreed to attend the wedding to minimize any further hassle. Fast forward to the wedding day, 2 months later. The bride was as beautiful as Selena's father had described, and she exuded genuine kindness and straightforwardness. I couldn't help but wonder why such a wonderful woman would marry someone like Miles, but I chose not to pry and simply played my role as the groom's sister. After the wedding, Miles and his new wife departed for their honeymoon without much ado. No one made an effort to keep me around, and I had nothing to say to my parents or grandparents. I made a brief visit to Selena's home to convey my greetings and then left. Time passed without any contact until suddenly, Miles reached out to invite me to see the cherry blossoms. It wasn't as grand as the National Cherry Blossom Festival in Washington, D.C., but our hometown also had a botanical garden with cherry trees. It was a common seasonal event, yet I grew suspicious when it became clear that the real agenda wasn't just about cherry blossoms but something more significant, convincing me to relinquish my inheritance rights. Apparently, a major land development project was in the works near our family home, with a prominent developer planning to buy up the area for a large condo complex. Real estate prices were soaring, particularly around our property, which included not only the house but also a sizable parking area. It seemed Miles and my parents, enticed by the rising land value, were eager to ensure I would stake a claim to the inheritance in the future. They say not to count your chickens before they hatch, I thought to myself. In truth, I had never placed much importance on inheritance matters. Yet Hugh once advised me, even if you don't need it, it might be wise to settle things once and for all. So I made the decision to return home. I booked a room at the same hotel I had stayed in before and planned to meet my family at the botanical garden. The day arrived, and I reached the designated spot to find my sister-in-law, whom I had only met once at the wedding, sitting alone on a bench. I was early by 3 hours, but she had arrived even before me. She appeared composed, but her face was pale and dark circles were visible under her eyes. Do you remember me? I'm Lee, Miles's sister. We met at the wedding. I greeted her. Upon hearing my name, she stood up in surprise, but almost immediately stumbled. I swiftly reached out to catch her. She felt surprisingly light and frail, reminiscent of how I remembered myself back in high school. "I'm sorry. Thank you," she murmured softly, clearly caught off guard. Her name, if I recall correctly, was Carolyn. Carolyn, right? If you're not feeling well, don't push yourself, but sit down, I suggested. We resumed our seats, but the bench felt cold, likely from the earlier rain. Upon closer inspection, Carolyn's apron and hair were damp, as if she had been caught in the downpour. "What time did you get here? We agreed to meet at noon, right?" I asked. "Yes, but I was told to secure the best spot for cherry blossom viewing, so I've been sitting here all night to make sure no one else took it," Carolyn explained. "This might be the best spot for cherry blossoms, but you didn't have to go through all this trouble," I replied. "But if I don't do as Miles says, not just him, but Trevor and Jasmine will scold me too. This is just how it always is," Carolyn sighed. "Trevor and Jasmine are my dad and mom," I realized, feeling a surge of anger that made my whole body tremble. Without hesitation, I took off my coat and draped it over Carolyn. Then I sent a message to Selena. Later that afternoon, during a break with Selena, she received an internal call. "I think it's probably from Leah's family. How should I respond?" Selena asked me. I wrote down what I wanted Selena to convey to my parents and Miles, then handed it to her. Within an hour, Miles and my parents rushed in. "What do you mean there's no reason to see you anymore?" Miles shouted. "Exactly. We had to search all over the garden because you broke the appointment and didn't even contact us," my dad added. Finally, someone informed them they had seen me with Selena and Carolyn. The three of them started yelling, but Selena sternly told them to keep their voices down, reminding them we were in a hospital. However, their silence only lasted a moment. "Who are you to butt in? If you're not family, leave," they barked at Selena. Selena, accustomed to dealing with patients and their families daily as a senior administrator in the hospital. "Right now, Carolyn's receiving treatment and resting in her room, so you can't see her." Upon hearing this, Miles and my parents grew even angrier. Why do I need permission to see my own wife? Explain what's going on, Miles demanded loudly. Frustrated, I turned first to my parents. Keep it down. Can't you remember being told to be quiet just a minute ago? Is there something wrong with your memory? Then I faced Miles, who stood next to my parents, his face red with anger. You dare call yourself a husband while mistreating your wife? How ironic, I exclaimed. Just then, Hugh appeared, accompanied by 2 police officers. All right, here we are. This is the husband and relatives of the victim I mentioned earlier, Hugh declared, pointing at Miles and my parents. Their faces, which had been flushed with anger, suddenly tense and turned pale. What's going on? Why are the police here? Victim? You mean Carolyn? Isn't this an exaggeration? Miles stammered, attempting to argue back. Hugh handed them his business card. I should have mentioned earlier. I'm Lee's partner and a lawyer. From now on, I'll be representing Carolyn. Nice to meet you. Representing my wife? What do you mean representing? My dad interjected. Making a woman sit alone outdoors overnight in temperatures below 41 degrees Fahrenheit just to secure a cherry blossom viewing spot is far from normal by any standard, Hugh continued calmly. But still, isn't it strange for a lawyer to get involved in something like this? When a client asks for representation, it's natural for a lawyer to provide it. Besides, you guys canceled Carolyn's cell phone contract over a year ago and hardly give her any money. What if something had happened while she was out there? I added firmly. But nothing did happen, so that's beside the point, my mom retorted. Can't you imagine what would happen if someone went without food or water for nearly half a day? You're not kids anymore, Hugh continued. Moreover, when you told her to secure the spot, you didn't even give her time to dress properly for the outdoors. You'd even locked her out immediately. How is this not malicious behavior? Hugh spoke smoothly, and the 2 police officers beside him nodded with stern expressions. I chimed in when I met her. She was freezing and looked pale. That's why we brought her to this hospital in Selena's car right away, I explained. Actually, I was at the botanical garden 3 hours before meeting Miles and my parents because I had plans to meet Selena. I had texted Selena that I was meeting Miles and my parents under the guise of cherry blossom viewing. She suggested I take a stroll in the botanical garden to calm my nerves. Before that, I agreed, as I was feeling a bit uneasy. Thanks to arriving much earlier, I was able to find Carolyn in poor condition, Selena interjected. I immediately called my husband, who is a doctor, and he advised bringing her to the hospital as soon as possible. He even came to pick us up on his way to work. Thanks to that, Carolyn received prompt medical attention, and her body temperature and color soon returned to normal. In the meantime, based on my husband's diagnosis that she was both physically and mentally weak, she was transferred to the inpatient ward, Selena concluded. During the ride to the hospital and between examinations, Carolyn shared her story with us, shedding light on the true extent of her ordeal. I sought Selena's advice and contacted Hugh, who promptly arrived to act as Carolyn's attorney. Consulting with the police and notifying Carolyn's family, Hugh stated firmly, "As far as I'm concerned, your actions against my client could be considered assault. Naturally, I plan to file a complaint in that regard." Miles's face turned pale upon hearing this. Assault? That's a bit much. I didn't physically harm her or anything. Harm doesn't just mean physical injury, Hugh explained. Past cases have defined it as adversely affecting a person's health. But she just felt a little sick, Miles insisted. There's no need to make a big deal out of it. Whether it's a big deal or not is for the police and prosecutors to decide, he replied sternly. At that moment, a police officer intervened. "Let's take you somewhere to hear more about this," they said, leading Miles and his parents away. After a stern warning from the police, Miles and his parents returned home to find Carolyn's family waiting for them, visibly furious. According to Carolyn, her brother had initially thought highly of Miles but became concerned when Miles cut off communication after their marriage. Miles had allegedly told him, "Carolyn said she's always hated her family. Now that we're married, she's finally cut ties. I told them not to contact me anymore." Carolyn's family learned from her that Miles had also told her, "Your brother never liked you. He begged me to take you off his hands. I only married you out of obligation, not love." Furthermore, Miles's parents and grandparents continually told Carolyn, "You're a burden. Just be grateful we're putting up with you." It became clear that Miles and his family had isolated Carolyn from her own family to use her for their convenience. This incident exposed their mistreatment, leading Carolyn's family to rally around her during her recovery at the hospital. Though the legal repercussions were minimal, the social fallout in our small town was significant. Rumors spread quickly, and the community's opinion turned against Miles and his family. They faced humiliation at work and in the neighborhood. Additionally, a major land development deal fell through, causing financial ruin as property values plummeted. Carolyn's family demanded divorce compensation and a division of assets, intensifying the family's strife. My grandparents lost all their assets and had to move into a care facility. Miles and my parents faced a messy divorce settlement. They sought Hugh's help, but he firmly declined, saying, "If you try to contact Leah or me for money, we'll respond legally." Having changed my contact details and distanced myself from their turmoil, I finally felt liberated from the complications tied to my family's home and inheritance.